The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and lemon polish. I sat across from Mr. Henderson, still trying to process what he'd just told me. My great-uncle Martin had left me his farm, all 200 acres of it, including the main house, 3 barns, and apparently a whole lot of trouble I didn't know about yet. "There's one thing you should be aware of," Mr. Henderson said, sliding a folder across his mahogany desk. "The Willowbrook Estates HOA has been persistent." I raised an eyebrow. "Huh? Uncle Martin's farm was built in 1887. What HOA? That's precisely the issue." He opened the folder, revealing a stack of letters, each more aggressive than the last. "The development went up around the farm about 15 years ago. They've been trying to absorb the property ever since." I drove out to the farm that afternoon, my truck bouncing along the gravel road that cut through property. The old farmhouse stood proud on a hill, white paint peeling but dignified, surrounded by fields that rolled toward distant tree lines. It was beautiful. It was mine. And apparently, someone wanted to take it. The next morning, I was on the porch with my coffee when a silver Mercedes SUV came crawling up my driveway like a shark circling prey. A woman emerged, her hair shellacked into submission, wearing what I could only describe as affluent casual, clothes that cost more than my truck but were designed to look effortless. "Good morning," she called out, her smile tight and practiced. "I'm Diane Pritchard, president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA. You must be the new owner." "That's right. Emma Chun." I didn't get up from my chair. Her smile flickered. "Well, Emma, I wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood and discuss some important matters regarding your property." "I'm listening." Diane climbed the porch steps without invitation. "First, we need to discuss the road situation. The main access road that runs through your property, that's actually HOA property now." I nearly spit out my coffee. "Excuse me? It's all documented," she said, pulling papers from her designer bag. "When Willowbrook Estates was developed, an easement was established. The roads belong to the HOA, which means you'll need to pay your fair share of maintenance, retroactively, I might add. Your uncle refused, but we're hoping you'll be more reasonable." I set down my coffee and took the papers. The documentation was a mess of legal jargon, but one thing was clear. This wasn't an actual deed or title. It was an HOA declaration from 2009, signed by the developers and the HOA board. My uncle's signature was nowhere on it. "This doesn't have my uncle's consent," I said. "The easement was established through majority agreement of surrounding property owners. My uncle's property was here first, by over a century." I handed back the papers. "So no, your HOA doesn't own my roads." "Nice try, though." Diane's pleasant mask cracked. "Ms. Chun, I don't think you understand the situation. Without HOA cooperation, you'll have no access to municipal water, no trash pickup, and we control the electrical easements. The farm has a well, septic, and our own electrical lines." I interrupted. "Been that way since before your development existed. Anything else?" Her eyes hardened. "You're making a mistake. Probably not my first. Won't be my last." She left in a spray of gravel, and I thought that might be the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, I found a construction crew at the far end of my property line, setting up orange cones along the main road. I drove down in my truck, dust billowing behind me. "What's going on here?" I asked the foreman, a tired-looking man with a clipboard. "HOA work order," he said, barely looking up. "We're blocking off this road for repaving. Should be done in 6 weeks. This is private property. You can't just—" "Lady, I just follow orders. Talk to the HOA." He turned away, speaking into his radio. I pulled out my phone and called Mr. Henderson. 20 minutes later, I had a cease and desist letter being faxed to the construction company's main office. The crew left, confused and irritated, but they left. That night, Diane returned, this time with reinforcements. 2 board members flanked her, a man in golf clothes and a woman who looked like she carried her way through every retail establishment in a 50-mile radius. "You can't keep obstructing HOA business," Diane announced from my driveway. She didn't even bother with pleasantries this time. "It's not HOA business. It's my property. The roads are a shared community resource. The roads are mine, I said, walking down the porch steps. Built by my family, maintained by my family on my family's land. You built around us. That doesn't give you ownership. The golf-clothes man stepped forward. We have legal precedent. No, you have a wish list disguised as bylaws. I was done being polite. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take your fake easement paperwork, your illegal construction orders, and your entitled attitudes back to your McMansions. And you're going to leave me alone. We'll sue, Diane hissed. Please do. I've already spoken with 3 lawyers who'd love to take this case. Apparently, HOAs trying to absorb established properties through fraudulent claims makes for excellent precedent in the property owner's favor. They left, but I knew it wasn't over. Over the next 2 weeks, I received 17 violations notices. My barn was not aesthetically consistent with neighborhood standards. My tractor was an eyesore. My roosters, the ones that had been crowing on this land for generations, were noise violations. Each notice came with a fine. Each fine went straight into my recycling bin. Then they made their biggest mistake. I came home from town to find a surveying crew on my property, planting stakes and running lines. When I confronted them, they showed me an HOA authorization for boundary verification and easement establishment. I called the sheriff. Deputy Morrison arrived within 20 minutes. He was an older gentleman who'd known my uncle and had exactly 0 patience for HOA nonsense. Ma'am, the surveyor protested, we have authorization. From who? Deputy Morrison asked. The Willowbrook HOA board. Do they own this property? Well, no, but... Then they can't authorize work on it. He turned to me. You want to press charges for trespassing? I thought about it. Not yet, but I want it documented. The survey crew packed up. Deputy Morrison stayed for coffee and told me stories about my uncle running off previous HOA attempts with far more colorful language than I'd used. The next HOA meeting was on a Thursday. I showed up uninvited, walked right into the clubhouse, and sat down in front row. Diane's face went white. You can't be here, she sputtered. This is for HOA members only. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone and setting to record, HOA meetings are required to be open to affected property owners according to state law. And since you keep claiming jurisdiction over my property, I'm affected. I let them stumble through their agenda. Complaints about Christmas lights in February, arguments over what shade of beige was acceptable for mailboxes, a heated debate about whether wind chimes constituted noise pollution. Then they got to old business. The Chun property situation, Diane said, her voice clipped. We need to discuss further action. I'd love to hear this, I said. The room went silent. Golf clothes guy cleared his throat. Perhaps we should table this. No, I said, standing up. Let's talk about it. You've been harassing me for weeks, claiming you own roads you don't, sending fraudulent fines, authorizing illegal surveys. So let's be clear, for everyone here, the farm has been in my family since 1887. Your development went up in 2009. You don't get to retroactively claim ownership of property that existed a century before you did. The easement, Diane started. There is no easement. There's an HOA fantasy document that my uncle never signed, and that has no legal validity. I've had 3 lawyers review it. You want to keep pushing this? Fine. We'll go to court, and I'll countersue for harassment, trespassing, and filing fraudulent claims. Your HOA's insurance rates will be astronomical, assuming you can even get coverage after losing. The room was dead quiet. Or I continued, you accept that my farm is not part of your HOA, never will be, and we coexist like reasonable neighbors. Your choice. I walked out into the cool evening air, my heart pounding, but my head clear. 2 days later, I received a certified letter from the HOA's attorney. I opened it with shaking hands, prepared for the worst. It was a formal withdrawal of all claims to the farm's roads and property. The harassment stopped. The fines disappeared. Diane Pritchard started taking a different route on her morning walks. Last week, I planted my first crop, heirloom tomatoes, like Uncle Martin used to grow. The old farm is coming back to life, one row at a time. Sometimes I see the HOA residents looking over the fields with something like longing, maybe remembering what land looks like when it's actually used for something real instead of just maintained arbitrary aesthetic standards. The roads are still gravel. The barn is still weathered. The roosters still crow at dawn. And every bit of it is mine,